Good afternoon, everyone. Sir, I'll take a minute for your brief introduction.
Yeah, please. Yeah, you can keep it very brief. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sir. Students, we have with us Dr. Taslimarif Saiyed. He is the CEO and director of CCAMP, and he is PhD from Max Planck Institute from Brain Research Germany, and followed it up by postdoctoral training at University of California. At the same time, he also underwent the training in management for biotech and innovation from uh, San Francisco, and he has also completed a biotech management program from biotech executives at Wharton School of Management. Um, Dr. Sayyed is an adjunct faculty at IIT Madras and also Amrita Institute School of Biotechnology. He also heads the Discovery to Innovation Accelerator program at CCAMP. He is actively involved in promoting innovation in life science or healthcare by supporting translation of discoveries to application, entrepreneurship, and technology development. With very brief introduction, on behalf of Srishti, I welcome you, sir. Over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Megha, for that kind introduction. And I hope um, everyone is keeping well. It's a pleasure to be a part of this particular program, which is a phenomenal initiative led by Professor Anil Gupta in terms of uh, promoting uh, uh, the uh, innovations in settings which are beyond people talk about, and also supporting that a lot of students are there today who are interested in the innovations per se. And I think I'm delighted that we would possibly get a chance of question answer as well. So I would try to keep my talk for 30 minutes, and then we can have 15 odd minutes for question answers. But I hope we do question answers because that is a good fun part. What I'm going to say is, a part of it is known to you, but if that allows us to do some discussions, it will be wonderful. So if I can just share with that background, I'll just share my screen for my presentation. Can you see my screen?
It's yes, sir.
Is my screen visible to all? Anyone can? Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So, yeah, so what I want to talk about today, friends, is I think if most of us are in from the science background or otherwise, um, just the how fulfilling an entrepreneurship journey could be when it's based on a new science and technology. And we all know that scientific knowledge, when it gets developed, its maximum impact gets realized when it solves a societal problem, when it is useful. That doesn't mean, however, very clearly that sometimes it takes shorter time to become useful, sometimes it takes longer time. But when scientific knowledge allows us to do that, that's an asset. Every understanding of science or around being around is an asset. And hope is that those assets, this, as one would call it, uh, the strength can be utilized as we go forward. And scientific entrepreneurship allows us to take that asset, take that knowledge, take that strength, and then converts into application. And that's very, very important. Why it is more important for all of us in today's day and age, we all know about it. We are going through very tough times and many families are getting impacted. But at the same time, a country which has invested into science and then innovations based on science, you can clearly see they have an edge above others. I don't want to say that we are in the race between countries. I think, humanity has been divided in many ways including borders. But just to see if there is another group which has done well, we can possibly see what has helped them to do well. So those countries who are also our brethren in a way, regardless of their color, caste, and faith, they may have done well something. And idea is that if you look at them, they have invested in science, they have followed up on the science, and they have taken it forward. It is not an early stage. And then they have worked scientific contribution, scientific knowledge to the application. So this is something that we as a community, if we talk us as a group, you can always have groups within groups within groups. But as an India as a group, there's something we can do. There's something possibly Gujarat as a group can do. This Ahmedabad can do. North of Ahmedabad can do. A neighborhood of North Ahmedabad can. There's always you can make many groups, and there's no end to it. But I think when you learn, you can always learn and appreciate others and then learn from them and do well, which would help everyone. So from that perspective, I think that investment in science that many countries have done it. Japan has done it for years. Europe has done it. US has done it, and many others which I possibly am not counting in have done it. But that's allowing them to stay on top of good healthcare infrastructure, good education infrastructure. Their the lifestyles are much more. What we want is to ensure that human being gets the support they deserve, and many ways it can be, and one of the ways to invest in science and make sure that we are on top of the abilities to serve society back. We have many examples. We on scientific entrepreneurship. Most, like you have heard of Serum Institute, it's a scientific entrepreneurship, right? When they began with building antibodies to begin with, and before vaccines and all that, they started on that. Or you talk about Bharat Biotech, or you talk about Biocon. These are all bioscience entrepreneurship that we talk about. So is globally, Pfizer's or Moderna's or Johnson and Johnson or Merck, all are the bioscience. And you can have, change the field and it would happen. Science and technology. So it's very important that the scientific mindset and the technology mindset takes on their own work when you as students first of all build knowledge, and based on that knowledge then pick ideas which excite you, you know what I mean. And with that idea you can possibly see how those ideas can be done. So sometimes good knowledge also allows you to kind of assess ideas and pick the right ideas. Innovation is actually putting together good understanding of knowledge and then attempt to build it. So once you build good knowledge, good education, good training you have, your ability to assess new ideas, your ability to think of new ideas also gets mature. So through your good education, training and all, you'll be able to imbibe the understanding of how different capabilities are, and you build on it. So I think this is a very exciting part when scientist decides to take his or her own work towards building a technology or a product. It could be you, it could be your friends, it could be your friends of friends. But that's very important because that's where you will build new technology and product, which will make us take the leap in terms of how. So when you take a leap, like in India, we say that when you take the leap to the next healthcare capabilities, let's say possibly we'll do it in digital health, it will ensure that the society gets benefit out of it in terms of technology. Like we did it in IT and mobile, we took a huge leap, right? The society is getting benefited out of it. Similarly, we need to take much and more new ideas and take them forward. In last 8 to 10 years in India, starting 2012, 13, we 11, 14, we have had many new attempts or new efforts which are getting supported, and we know a lot. And you may be knowing of efforts like from the Department of Biotechnology, BIRAG, Department of Science and Technology, NSTDB, MIT, Gujarat government has very exciting opportunities. So there are several of those. So that's where, from the nation perspective, and of students of science and engineering and technology perspective, I think it's a very exciting time to look at, can I also build something in future? Can I also contribute in building something in future? It doesn't need to be you, but you can be a group. And it's very gratifying in a way once that happens. So this is where a larger aspect of science entrepreneurship is, broad thing. So with that background, I want to just talk about the organization that I work for, which is CCAMP on your left top corner in a way. It is a member of a Bangalore Life Science Cluster, which also has NCBS and INSTEM, two both stunning organizations, and together they form Bangalore Life Science Cluster. We are around 1,800 people on campus, and most of them are involved in scientific work directly. But this also is a very good example of a cluster which has capability to do early basic knowledge work, that is understanding, basic science understanding, and so on, translation, innovation, and commercialization. So we're attempting that bit under this, and we are trying to see how that can be taken forward. So this is the lobby area on the organization. All of us are welcome to reach out. We have two verticals, rather three verticals now. One is technology platforms, where I will talk a little bit about it, and then other is an entrepreneurship vertical. So there are two different verticals. Today we are going to talk about this a little bit because under this we have an incubator program. We will talk about more. This we will not go into detail for now because the topic is a bit different. So I'll just give you briefly about the technology platforms. A lot of you who are studying this would know the value of technology in driving science forward. I think these are the technologies which allow us to, study the minutest to the macro scale, biological, components in a way, if one says it. So you have, mass microscopy, which would allow you to take, at the micro scale studying and high resolution mass microscopy, electron microscopy, cryo-electron microscopy, to something flow cytometry to you can do cell analysis in flow, genomics to do sequencing of genomes as we know, mass spectrometry to characterize proteins, characterize sugars, characterize metabolites, characterize lipids, right? And then at the same time, do structure analysis of biomolecules, building transgenic animals, and do microfluidics and microfabric. There's a lot more, but this is how science actually can be studied further and built further. These technology platforms are very crucial in that. And we work with loads of organizations across India, as you can see. A lot of work has happened here as well. And I think we are hoping that we'll be able to do more in this. So a lot of collaborations happen. So this is one vertical, which has a lot of work, but doesn't get into the as other vertical of CCAM gets talked about, because this is a different kind of work in terms of scientific advancement. In terms of the innovation entrepreneurship, we have a lot of capabilities where we have programs like funding, incubation, mentorship, and acceleration. More than this, very important thing, if I may say for you all friends, is that these are programs, and having programs is not a strength of an organization. These programs are built to provide strength to support what we believe in. And what we want to believe? We believe in supporting uh, deep science ideas who are path breaking in nature, and how those can be supported towards their deployment, application, and so on. And doing so, first of all, you have to spot them, you have to attract them so somebody can come and talk to you. It is very important that you are in a position that people come and talk to you, because you can always pull people in by doing schemes and so on. But very importantly, you should have a standing that people will come and say, hey, I want to share my idea. Just to give you a thought, in last 2 days, one faculty from Mohali, one faculty from Austria, Vienna, have reached out to us in last Saturday, Sunday rather, or rather yesterday only, that they want to discuss their idea in agriculture and the other idea in the antiviral. They reach out to you because they believe that one could help you. And that's very important. So when you start building health, there are many ways you can help them. First of all, you can engage and appreciate what the science is, respond to their science, as well as at the same time, uh, make a value addition to what they are suggesting. It doesn't need to be just an external, it can be a value addition as well. And then you have capabilities like these programs, funding, incubation, mentorship, acceleration, so that that journey can go forward. So if I what I was trying to say is that there is a belief or a hypothesis with the way we want to support them, and there's a programs to enable that. So we have many startups, around 200, more than 225 or some startups of our own where we have funded. And friends, many of them are right now top biotech startups of India. Um, this involve something like Bugworks, which is working on, uh, you know, antimicrobial resistance. This involves Koyo Labs, which works on preventing secondary infection when a patient is on ventilator. It also involves something like C6, which is working on utilizing algae, uh, which is more or less an seaweed, weed that floats on sea, on top of on top of water in sea. How do you utilize them for agriculture? Uh, or sorry about that. Or Pandorum, which attempts to do stem cells for building mini liver outside the body, or Achira Labs, which is using microfluidics for diagnostics, or String, which is using synthetic biology for reduction in global warming and building non-human food, or iStem, which is attempting stem cell therapy for vision disorders, or Biomonitor, which is attempting the device to prevent microbial or the pathogen load in a given environment, like in ICUs and others. And there are many more. I can keep going and give you a wide variety of capabilities. Like Module is doing fantastic work in UTI, urinary tract infection testing. And they are very exciting work, as you can imagine. But all of them has one thing that is at the base, which is interesting science, interesting scientific idea, and they're attempting to take it forward. It is possible that not all of them will be successful. It's of course it's true that they won't be successful, but some of them will be, and that will give us an edge as we go forward in terms of building science-based, building technology-based innovations in healthcare, agriculture, animal health, environment. And that is something very exciting according to me, because we'll have at least some winners out out of many attempts we are doing right now. So that is one. You can further divide them into sectors which I'll not trouble you with, but it can be in antimicrobial resistance, it could be in molecular biology, regenerative medicine, furthermore, infectious disease, biologics, oncology, medical devices and accessories, and so on, maternal child health. It could be further into other areas like agriculture, nutraceuticals. But excuse me, the the common thread being the what one would call it as a scientific ideas and the principles that they are trying to take it forward to answer problems that they envisage how it can be done. We also believe that there are areas that India requires to have attention, and like maternal child health. So we have dedicated areas where we want to build more and more innovations. Agriculture as well, that we want to actually have more presence, and antimicrobial resistance, which is in a way a global health tsunami. So right now, while we are struggling with the COVID-19 challenge, at the same time, the world is facing a problem of new bacterial versions, like variants, as you would call them, and no cure for them. And it is estimated that 2050, by then, we as on Earth, we would lose around 10 million people per year every year. And it is estimated that India may already being 2.5 million, that is 25%, 20 to 25% of that number. So this is a huge number. When you talk about 2.5 million people every year, you're losing for something. So that's a challenge, and that's something that we need to work on. So broadly, what I wanted to say is that while this happens, scientific innovations also allows you to respond to societal problems. So we we had set up two major programs, which we call it NBRIC and Index, which is towards answering, or rather attempting to address, a big challenge we all faced last year, that is towards availability of testing kits in India, when we realized that we didn't have enough kits to even test people around us. And the reason that we didn't have enough testing kits because we never had industry as well as academic growth that allowed high scale up capabilities. So from the support of uh, two separate efforts, one in NBRIC, which is where DBT is supporting us, and in Index, where Rockefeller Foundation is supporting us. We actually attempted to see if we can do that. And right now, under this, we have around 120 odd companies who are attempting to build reagent by reagent at a high quality, and then the testing kit at high quality at the regulatory standard, so that we have enough testing kits for so that we can test more people. Once we test more people, the spread can be much more managed. The reason that we are seeing that is that a lot of people are getting infected because within family or otherwise, because they don't know that they are you know positive, and they end up spreading to, and the chain continues. And so the early testing, enough testing, would allow people to know themselves and hence not spread it further. And that's very important. So we are hoping that the current availability that we have done through around 700 to 900,000 tests per day through this effort, that is RT-PCR, not only rapid antigen, but RT-PCR test, it will be, hopefully, it is already contributing to our nation's effort in terms of testing early and testing at mass scale. So, and the other effort that we did heavily was that a program that we call it as a CCDA, which is COVID-19 Innovations Deployment Accelerator, where we partnered with many organizations to see that now we don't have testing kits. We didn't have last year, March, April. We didn't have ventilators. We didn't have decontamination devices. We didn't have so many other the oxygen capabilities and not. So in collaboration with all, we built a program and invited requests. We got around 1,100 innovations within a month or less than a month, and we assess all of them within a month. So from 25th March to 25th April, from announcement to the final thing, we had 30 startups which we assessed, due diligence, identified for their work in diagnostics, assisted respiratory devices, pre-screening capabilities, vital monitoring like DOSI and all, which are making a lot of movements, positive movements, how they're doing, air or surface sanitizers, some of the work in therapeutics, preventatives, drug screening platforms, telemedicine, and many other components, and of course, cold chain transport for vaccines. Very happy to say out of 30, 22 or 23 are right now serving people in the field. So they are already deployed. We collectively, all of us help them to ensure that they move forward, whatever issues were there were settled. But these 23 Indian innovations are right now serving people. And I'm sure there are more as well than this. So this is where the strength of scientific entrepreneurship or scientific strength comes in. What these startups did is they did not invent something new. They built on existing knowledge. Either they were doing something and they repurposed their journey or device, pivoted as one calls it in the management language. But they actually, within a couple of months or 3 to 4 months, they actually hustled and built something at the quality standards, at the regulatory standards, which can actually go forward. And now they are actually serving people on daily basis. And that's very, very exciting, according to me. And that's where the strength of science and scientific entrepreneurship comes in. So I would say, so this particular effort was called, could they said that, Yossi said, could be a global study on how to leverage innovations in times of crisis. So I would say scientific entrepreneurship is very crucial for countries like India, and I'm sure organizations like Srishti and all who are inculcating the thoughts of problem solving, the thoughts of science-based problem solving and building enterprises and all. It's very, it's very good because we'll need this entrepreneurship journey, science or technology for our own problems, because our problems are different from our good friends. Everyone is a good friend. So have good friends in Europe or sophisticated countries, or in Africa even, which is not as sophisticated. There are different problems on the ground. So we need innovations which solve our own problems. And I think this is the right time for young scientists to follow their interest once they are ready and build innovations which has societal impact. I think it's very, very crucial. And these are the right platforms where, for me to say this all has been to say that there are very exciting opportunities. If you have ideas, you can take it forward. Please do remember that not all ideas are great. Please do remember that idea is only the first mile of 1,000-mile journey. Based on an idea, nobody's going to, don't believe that you have solved a problem when you have an idea. It is just baby step you have taken in terms of solving a problem. But very important to build ideas, share ideas with others, let let people come back and help you refine those ideas, even if they criticize, refine your ideas, and then building it. It's always a navigation. Innovation is not a straight line, very clearly. Innovation is navigating, taking something that is in your hand and navigate through the possibilities and go towards your direction. It is not a straight line. So you'll have to have ability to hear and listen from others around you to ensure that it goes. So I think I'll stop here. As I mentioned, we wanted to do till 2:30, but I have enough time to do question answers if there are any. But if anybody wants to reach out to us, our website is here. This is my email ID. The social media, it is ccamp_Bangalore, or my own is Taslimarif. Please feel free to reach out with ideas. There are a lot of good things can happen. There is no perfect time for building innovations, but of course, good understanding of the field and good education training helps you to assess what is required and what would work and what would not work. So with that, I will thank organizers for the opportunity. Uh, And of course, you for kind listening, and wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Students, now the floor is open for your questions and queries. Yes.
Yeah, sir, I have a question.
Yeah, please. I think you can directly ask me, or if somebody wants to moderate, that's perfectly fine. Please go ahead.
First of all, sir, thank you for the presentation. So I was asking that, like you just said that innovation, it doesn't have to be a new invention all the time. Sometimes one can actually do some modifying work on some existing things. So can you just give us some example of such innovations? Like,
So, first of all, there's a difference between invention and innovation. Invention is finding out something new. Innovation is building something that is useful. Every invention may not be useful, but innovation has to be accepted because innovation has to benefit somebody. Invention may not. So that's one. In terms of repurposing, as I mentioned, there were people who were potentially building, as one would call it, uh, a device for the usual testing for possibly COVID-19. They had all the capabilities, but they were not doing COVID-19. They were possibly doing for TB. I'm talking about TrueNat by MolBio company, but they had the ability to do very high specific testing for TB. And during this time, they were able to just shift a bit and build capabilities in COVID-19 and do it. Because nobody knew about COVID-19 a year and a half ago, right? So to build solutions within 6 months, it's not possible. So what idea was that they were doing something and they just shifted a bit to answer once they understand what is COVID-19. It's an RNA virus. What are the primers to be used? What sensitivity is required? Where do you find it most in terms of human thing? It is not blood-based because it's a respiratory tract virus. So that all understanding was there. Scientific knowledge was there for testing people to say, okay, we will have to do this. But that scientific understanding came from different groups who were saying that no, it's a respiratory tract virus. It is not blood-based virus infection. So you cannot take blood and say, oh, you have infection. You cannot take urine and you say infection. You have to take swabs. So this is where the scientific knowledge generation and innovators who use knowledge and build something for their own. So that is something and there are many more examples like how they would be, many people have shifted their work and done that, but it is not modifying. It is, I would say, one would call it repurposing or reusing it for different application of their own work. I hope I answer your question.
yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Sorry.
Good afternoon.
Hello, sir.
Who
I had a
is
hello. Am I audible, sir?
I can hear you. Please introduce yourself also.
Okay, I am Raghav Vora and I am pursuing my bachelor's from St. Xavier's College, Ahmedabad, the same college you have pursued your bachelor's.
Very good.
So I would just like to briefly introduce that last time also we met in 2019, the conference that was held in our college itself, and I was sitting on your left side and I had the same question that I would ask today itself.
So that means that I could not answer the question last time. So let me see if I can do it today.
No, you had answered that question, but today 2 years have passed since, so I feel that maybe something might have changed in this span of time.
Please ask.
So I had this question. Basically, I would integrate my learnings from the previous session also that Dr. Samir Brahmachari took, and he said that in his session that while they were pursuing this master's and PhD work, they found that genetics was a very intriguing field because they were able to see a large variation in the population because of a population boom. So genetics was definitely growing at that point of time. So at this point of time, do you find that nanoscience is that optimally growing in this sector as an entrepreneurial venture?
Yeah, I think nanotechnology is growing phenomenally for last 2 years or even more, Raghav. Quick examples, if you actually see, uh, there are many nanotechnology where you use uh, the resolution at the nano level and build applications on it. So in terms of material science, it has been used significantly, and now you are hearing how different materials have different properties that you can, build on it. In healthcare, nanotechnology is used heavily, but simply speaking, very quickly attempting to say, uh, it has been used right now, being used, and you will see in future in terms of the drug delivery mechanism.
Yes,
The
sir.
targeted drug delivery, as one would call it. You would possibly see even delivery for mRNA vaccines, where you load mRNA on a possibly even on a nano particle, and then you do it. You can even possibly look at it in terms of the use in agriculture. There's huge application where you can build nano resolution molecules, not only biological but otherwise, and actually apply them, because then you will have much more control in terms of what you can do with that. And I didn't talk about another work that one of a startup had, is to prevent toxicity induced by pesticides on farmers. So they have a nanotechnology based uh, cream which actually breaks the pesticide when it falls on the skin of farmers and doesn't allow to penetrate. Farmers otherwise are actually slowly, chronically getting affected because of such high exposures of pesticides. And you can see that many a times they lose their lives because of damage within the body, with organelle damage and other toxicity that's built up. It is not a sudden or acute loss of life, but it actually impacts health, and many people actually lose their lives because of that. Simple nanotechnology which targets breaking of the pesticide chemical, so that it, once it's broken, it doesn't go inside the, through permeate through the skin, and once it doesn't permeate, the toxicity doesn't build up. So it's very exciting science in terms of nanotechnology or nano resolution capabilities, and I'm sure it's going to grow further, Raghav. So I have no doubt in my mind it is a fascinating technology as we go forward. Hope that answers your question, Raghav.
Yes, sir. It definitely answered. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Sudarshan Balaji. I'm pursuing my MBBS from Government Kilpauk Medical College, Chennai, sir. So it's very interesting to know that there's a whole world of, I should say, genetics and genomics out there, because, so to be very frank, in the government setup, we don't have a lot of opportunities to do genetic testing for patients. So on that front, the products that you spoke about, the startups that you have worked with, sir, was very inspiring and very nice to hear, sir. So I have a few questions, sir. So, sir, do you think any time in the future will we be able to come up with a point of care testing, in terms of, like, when we are looking for either gene polymorphisms, or when we are looking at specific or even something as simple as karyotyping? So do you think there'll be any possibility, or is it even possible to think of something that can be done on a point of care basis in this regard, sir, like genetic testing? Because we depend on it a lot, right, sir, for a lot of disorders. So is it a possibility in the near future, sir? Sir, I think you're muted.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sudarshan. I think it's a good question. Without a doubt, I think understanding genetic makeups are useful in understanding many physiological implications that patient would have, including prognostics, which is, possibly predicting likelihood of disease occurrence or progression. And also, as we all know, response to treatments now, like our genetic makeup, our metabolomics or metabolome makeup, more or less can indicate what kind of treatment could be more suitable to us, because not all drugs work same way for all individuals. So it's very important, and I think the way the genomics field has moved, I think it's stunning, right? I remember when I was doing my undergrad and postgrad and work, at that time the genome was being sequenced, and if I'm not wrong, on the Time magazine or the Nature, the uh, front page or cover page was covered in that. It was fascinating, but today it is being done in almost every other biological lab. Technology has moved. The cost is, what costed us many years, costed millions and billions of dollars and so many human resources. We are doing that exactly the same, that is genome of an individual, in a few days at possibly even 0.0001% of the cost, whatever it is, and with as many less people. So the technology has gone so far that I have no doubt that, technologies like nanopo and even new ones which would come, which would allow you a portable sequencing devices to do that. Now there are 2 points to look at it. If you want to do a complete genome sequencing, genomics is not only about complete genome sequence, it's also about targeted sequencing. So if you were to talk about targeted sequencing for specific targeted genes in an individual, that can be done very fast and more or less in a quick turnaround time already, right? Which doesn't require that much data analysis, with which genome sequencing for now would require. So for understanding of presence or absence or mutation in terms of gene, is if we know the targets, it's pretty much figured out and can be done in quick turnaround time, while figuring out somebody's whole genome, which is new bacterial genome, human genome, viral genome, for analysis is something that is somewhere possibly a bottleneck compared to technology now. So the future is to crack the analysis aspect in terms of large data that genomics brings out, or possibly many other technologies which bring out large data. The bottleneck is analysis, and that's where the future in terms of the health data or even other data in terms of the microbiome data or other data would be there. So Sudarshan, I think you're very right, and that's where the technology is going.
Thank you so much, sir. It was very. I got more than, I think you answered a lot of questions I had inside also that I couldn't voice out. Just one more question, sir. I know this is a very I don't know. It may sound like a stupid question, sir, but I really don't know how to word this better. But there are, like for example, when we do RT-PCR testing, sir, for viruses like Epstein-Barr virus or even COVID, sir, is it possible to look at the same targets using restriction sites on conventional PCR? Is it a possibility? Just a yes or no? Will we be able to get can we think of it that way?
No, restriction sites are created, built in for cloning, right? Where enzymes we know would go and work. Now, new virus detection, if would have different genome, and we have to first of all figure out the easier, most available genetic sequences which can be easily detected easily, so the sensitivity is high, and also specificity. So there's no false positives or false negatives. So selection of those sites for detection happens based on this criteria, Sudarshan. So while the restriction enzymes and the restriction sites are different for cloning purposes.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Sudarshan. But we haven't had a question, no problem. We haven't had a question from any girls. So I invite questions from girls if they're around. Is it only boys gang here? How about girls?
No, sir, they're equal. I think almost 50% are girls in this.
Yeah, so I think we should have at least 1 or 2 questions from them, no?
Yes, sir.
I think, Dr. Barut, you're not going to put this out in YouTube. So I think anybody should not fear of any kind of question.
Yes,
Please
okay,
go ahead.
I can stop this.